Welcome to Belly Button Fluff on My Pillow, the poetic podcast series that approaches mental health and poetry as full amateurs. Welcome to episode 2. My name is Drew Taylor Wilson, my pronouns are they, them, and I am your host and amateur poetry and mental health expert. Poetry because I write it, usually for therapeutic contexts, and mental health because often the writing it down for therapeutic contexts isn't enough. So I made a podcast instead. Each week I sit down with a fellow mental health and poetry sufferer as they delightfully perform a poem written just for their sensibilities, and we then wax lyrical about all the poems we've loved and lost. Today's guest has a very special place in my heart. This is Stephen Will, who I have known since he was a child. Well, in fact, we've kind of always been the same size. You were also plagued with being very tall as a teenager. But yeah. 16 when we first met? I wasn't 16, you were 16.
I might have been 15.
Oh my god. But yeah, a bit more on that later. Take it away with That Hair.
And so, I lie here, daytime napping on the sofa because insomnia, with increasing levels of paranoia, doesn't make me a bad person because I don't tell you. You've got a long hair on your face. I tried to brush it off once and it tugged, pulling up a tiny mound of skin, confirming this over 2-inch long hair is found attached. It's actually part of your face, something I am struggling to embrace. And so I watch it daily. I fixate. I don't concentrate when you're talking. You might as well not have any other features. You are just a blanked out skin circle with that hair on it. I hate brunch places. Avocado toast, Edison bulb, geometric patterned good design. Because I find that hair catches the light beautifully in there particularly. That hair gleams and glistens in sophisticated lighting, and I am fighting the urge to... And so, I get freaked out. How can you not realize it's there? How can you stand in the mirror and not see it? You cleanse and moisturize with your skin. You take great care. So how can you not see that hair? It's over 2 inches long and it's sticking right out of the side of your face where no hair should be. And I know it's not my place to criticize our pluck, but how the fuck do you not see it? And so I bury my feelings, and that hair turns up in my dreams. I brush it off, brush it away, brush it down to make it stay. It doesn't, so I give up and swing on it. I floss with it. I'm pulling and it keeps coming, and now it's running, and it's a person. Your miniature twin, a thin baby version of you has emerged from your cheek, and it's a bit gnarled, but relatively cute. And its skin is see-through, and you and I, we love it. It is our baby, and we cradle it and lather with affection, and rather than tearing us apart, it is the closest we have ever been, ever felt. We take such good care of the svelte, shrunken skull deformity from your face. Its place is at our side, and we are a family. We walk hand in hand, us three, you, me, and your tiny miniature twin, and we win an award for facial incubation and tolerance. You for how long you kept it in there, and me for not asking you to gouge it out with a blunt instrument. And so I get up, and you're in the window having a rollie, scrolling on your phone, and the angle-poised lamp with the flecked cord illuminates that hair elegantly. And I just freeze. You're not my beautiful man. You're negligent and forgetful, and I'm sure you can do better, and you should. And that parasitic twin in there is having a much better time than me, and that's not fair, see? I need to get some sleep. So I creep out the room, step over that floorboard creak that's just outside the door, and I hurry back with some kitchen scissors. Nothing more. And I cut it off. And you don't really seem to notice.
Amazing! Thank you.
Thanks.
Absolutely beautiful.
Or
So, how are you today, my friend?
how am I? I am here and living in the moment and vibing and thriving and not diving out of anything. Hi. That's some words that came out my mouth. Does that answer your question?
That was great. How do we know each other?
So we've known each other for more than a decade now. I think I was around 15-ish. I auditioned for you when I was in school, obviously, for an exchange trip to San Francisco with Aberdeen Performing Arts Youth Theatre. Yeah. It was the first drama thing I'd ever done. I got in, obviously, and we went to San Fran, and then we performed a play written by an American playwright back in Aberdeen, having sort of gone through it with them over there, and that went.
That happened.
That happened.
Yeah.
That happened. What was it called?
The Ballad of Bonnie Prince.
The Ballad of Bonnie Prince Chucky.
Yeah. Dear reader, dear listener, you may well understand through the sentences stopping that it was an interesting experience. We generally had a brilliant time working together, but we generally didn't have a brilliant time with the actual art we were tasked with making. Is that a fair assumption to say?
That is a fair assumption to say.
And then essentially you never left my thoughts. Basically, when I turned up with Performance Collective Stranraer, we had a gap in one of our development programs, which is an incredible thing that PCS still runs, which is their lab program where young artists come together for an intensive weekend, and the idea is very deliberately to put everybody in one place. You stay overnight for a couple of nights, you do sessions, often 3 sessions a day, you develop your own artistry, you work on new things, you learn new skills. But we had a spot going in our first lab, and I said, I know someone who would really benefit from this. And then kind of the rest is history with your relationship with D&G, certainly.
Yeah, that pretty much led to me developing an entire artistry career in D&G. And I now have lots of people there that I'm friends with and have worked with, and it has led to, again, lifelong friendships and cool stuff.
And it's kind of weird that you legit have a relationship with Dumfries and Galloway as a region, but you are actually from
Aberdeenshire. Mon the Dons.
Are you up near Peterhead? No.
A bit down fae Peterhead.
Okay.
A wee bit down fae.
Wow. Pretty far away from Dumfries and Galloway.
Yeah.
So how was that to perform?
Fun. I have performed your writing before, and I'm familiar with the way you work, and it is a way that I have always enjoyed working. I vibe with it. Yeah, to big up yourself for a second, your poetry's sick, even though you call yourself an amateur. I wish I was as good an amateur as you. So it's always a joy.
The big thing about that big sort of artistic entry point in each of these episodes is that it's about exposing my audience to this technique of creating text that is simultaneously poetry and characterful intent. As an actor working with a text like that, how do you approach it differently compared to a standard monologue?
I enjoy the process. That's how it's different to doing a standard monologue. I think standard monologues are shit. I really struggle with just doing like a monologue for an audition, and I'm glad that auditions have somewhat moved away from that to a degree. Obviously, they're still there, and they still are useful and serve a purpose, blah, blah, blah. I just think that without the context of the piece that they're in, monologues serve no purpose. Yeah. Like, they're just words that exist, whereas poetry is words that exist with meaning.
Okay.
And with context.
Yeah. So a big thing in this podcast is we talk quite a bit about mental health, and I know that we've talked over the years a lot about our collective mental health, and the person in this piece, I would say, is quite high on the anxiety scale.
I think they sound perfectly reasonable. So maybe that's just a me thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's where I'm getting at. Like, do you feel like it was useful as someone with lived experience of anxiety doing a piece like this?
Anxiety is a whole unique thing, and if you've gone through your life and managed to not feel anxious about anything, how the fuck? And you lucky person. Am I allowed to swear? I don't know. We'll find that out.
All the pieces have got swear words.
You can put duck quacks over them if you like.
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be great. Anxiety is a unique little glorious nugget of post-evolutionary bullshit that we have to hold on to in our human brains. And every time I feel it, I hate it because I know it serves no purpose to me anymore. It's the appendix of emotions. We've evolved to be able to become hyper aware of shit.
Yeah.
And like, you know, to run away from big scary threats. Big scary threats don't really exist anymore because we thumbed past them all with our hands and opposable thumbs and shit. And now we just have the hangover of like, you know, what if there's a big scary rhino gonna kill me? But the rhino's dishes, and I just haven't done them yet.
Okay.
You know,
so
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but I feel like that realm of thinking feels quite useful in terms of, for me, when it comes to my anxiety, the biggest thing that I'm also combating against is that I'm so disappointed with myself for feeling that way, and I'm so down on myself for allowing that to take over. And I think that's quite a beautiful thing, that you're like, no, it's not dishes. Your brain is literally telling you that it's a rhino. Do you know what I mean? It's quite. Yeah. I think that's quite a useful way to approach it. That your brain is essentially contextualizing it all wrong, and maybe that's easier.
You Are Not Your Brain. There's a really cool play by it's quite a famous one now, Lucy Prebble, The Effect.
Right, okay.
And there's a character who's like a doctor in there and talks about how, like, is this brain me? And it's like, it's not, because you know, and then you're getting into the realm of like spirituality, and are you more than just a series of synapses that burst open and close all the time?
We've talked a lot about ideas of, so I'm pivoting slightly, but we've talked a lot because we are both born into male bodies that are large, that like take up space, that we are like XL, if not more. And I think there's something that I'm discovering as I'm getting older, is that I've actually got this real hang up about being a gentle giant, and that was kind of drummed into me as a child, and very much as I've got older, that's how I'm meant to behave. But I feel like it's really affected what relationship I have to my rage, to my like negative emotions, because there's such a huge thing of being, oh, you can't be like that, you have to be smaller, you have to not be scary.
Yeah, like, you're the bigger person, so you have to be the bigger person.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, those are like words that have been said to me in primary school and shit. And like, you know, I was having what I realized like 15 years later, like, were autistic meltdowns and panic attacks. Right. I remember like, as a full-grown person, maybe like 5 years ago, talking to mom and being like, did you realize that as a kid I was having panic attacks? And she went, yeah, of course. I went, yeah, it would have been so helpful if you could have just let me know at some point that that's what that was.
Yeah.
She was doing the best she could. But yeah, I got sent to like anger management classes, and I got taught how to put in place coping mechanisms for when I get angry, which in itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it was explicitly done to manage my symptoms of anger, not to manage like what was actually wrong with the situation.
Yeah.
So like I've got a big old justice sensitivity thing with my brain thing. You know, the justice thing with the brain thing?
I don't think I do.
It's like, apparently, it is a common thing amongst people who are autistic,
Right, okay.
is to have a really high sensitivity to like injustice,
Right,
and be like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Definitely, 100%. I've never been diagnosed with autism, but I went to therapy for a couple of years, and through discussions we were like, we think you're probably somewhere there. And I realized like this is one of the things. So I would have, you know, unfair things happen on playgrounds all the time. I would have a big old burnout meltdown about it. I would cry, I would get angry, and like I definitely was violent towards other people. So on one hand, it's understandable. Like I was a much bigger kid than everyone else, and if the biggest kid is trying to hit someone because they're having a big cry, like you kind of need to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
That can't happen. You can't have one kid hitting other kids. I teach youth theatre now, and obviously I'm like, oh, no, stop it. So on the one hand, yeah, I get it. On the other, I was told to sort of repress myself and my emotions, and that has carried with me throughout my life to this day. It's great.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on. Thank you for sharing all of that. It's beautiful, and it's. I'm just nodding my head the whole time because I'm like, yes, same, yes, same. Yeah. And I think it's always partly why we've sort of clung on to each other for all these years, because there's quite an automatic understanding, especially as giants. I wanted to briefly touch upon part of the reason why we're working together at the moment is that we're doing a presentation of lots of these monologues for a LGBT conference at Teesside University, of all glorious places, on Valentine's Day. And probably by the time this episode airs, we will have done it, and it would have been brilliant. Yes. But part of the reason why yourself and a fellow performer, Kirsty, were cast in this to work together is A, because I have a good working relationship with you both, but also that we all sort of sit somewhere within the queer umbrella. And your shift of pronouns, for example, into they them spaces, because I've known you for such a long time, that's a relatively recent thing.
In the last couple of years, yeah. It's sort of slowly. I went they he for a bit, and then only in the last year or so I've just sort of stealthily changed my Instagram tag to they them and introduced myself as they them.
Where did that come? Like, how did that evolve for you?
I have, for all of my young adult and adult life, been or thought of myself as the queer ally, as a straight cishet white man on the outskirts cheering from the sides. And then I sort of suddenly realized that every time someone referred to me as he or him, that it like made my gut go like, not like painful, but like, that's not right. That's not hitting the mark. And then a couple long conversations with my therapist and with my partner and etc., and friends and stuff. And I sort of slowly started just trialing it out. I think a PCS lab was one of the first times, because we always do a introduce yourself, say your pronouns at the start, and it gave me a chance to say like, yeah, my pronouns are they him, and not make a big deal about it, because I didn't want to come out, and I still technically speaking haven't come out. I've just started using those pronouns. And lots of people still use he him pronouns for me, and I'm like, it's fine, whatever. I think you called me he earlier in this podcast, and I was like, it's chill. It's chill. It happens. Also, I present as cis. Like, I don't dress particularly queer coded.
Not that you should or automatically need to.
But that, like, I go through that of like, oh, maybe because I don't dress queer coded, I don't deserve to use pronouns. And I'm like, wait, no. If they're only for people who dress a certain way, then that's not like an identity. That's just like a fashion. Like, if me as someone who dresses boring beige and doesn't really like queer code themselves, can't use that pronoun, then that pronoun isn't what it claims to be.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be available for everyone, or it's technically available for no one. And that's my little philosophy that I've been working on.
And why not? Why not? Yeah, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been beautiful to talk to you, and I'm really excited by this episode being released into the world. So this is the part of the podcast where I speak to my glorious guest about the poems that we've loved and lost. Talk to me about your relationship to poetry in your everyday life.
Let's call it aspirational.
So before I go further, is it aspirational because you feel like it's not accessible to you, or is it just something that just doesn't feature?
It is aspirational because I love poetry and have always loved poetry, and I've written it on occasion for fun, for myself, for my mental health, which is similar to how you've said you like to write poetry in the past as well. But mostly because of my mental health, in the past couple years or so, I haven't done it as much. And like coming on to do this project made me realize, like, fuck, I used to read so much poetry and I don't anymore. And like, you know, I'm thinking it's more than a couple of years. It's been a few years since I've read poetry, and that's fine. Like, I think I need to forgive myself for that and not pressure myself to be a fucking poet laureate. That's not what I'm at. Poetry's there for when we need it, and it stays there. Like, that's the cool thing about written down words, of like, you can just come back to them and they can be there for you rather than you having to, I don't know, there's some vague idea in my head of like, I should be getting up and writing a poem at dawn and then burning it at midnight or something. And I'm sure that's from like some teen soap opera that I watched somewhere.
Love that. You were saying earlier before we recorded that there's a particular author and some of their poems that you've come back to quite a few times.
I mean, there's a few. When I first started getting into theatre, I sat and read the works of Shakespeare because I'm an autistic and I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I love some of the works of Shakespeare. One of my favourite lines in all of theatre is, I'm going to paraphrase it here, I'm going to misquote it, but there's divine providence in the fall of a sparrow, which is funny because I'm not religious at all, but I love it. It's from Hamlet, and it's when he sort of accepts that he's about to die. Right. And it's like the culmination of all the themes of the play, of like acceptance of this is where it's at.
See, this is where I'm definitely in the amateur bank, because I just, Shakespeare was never my best friend at all. Like, there's a few, and like there's one that I know really well because I studied it at school. Like, I know Midsummer Night's Dream because it was the set text we did for a theatre course.
It's like, it's fine. I feel so, I get so angry that Midsummer Night's Dream is the one that's like set text school, because it is most accessible.
Yeah, and has women in it.
And has women in it, which,
I mean, like, I was going to
Jesus.
say has good women in it, and then I was like, no, has women in it.
Has women.
Has women.
Has women. There was a book of poetry that I read a few years ago and then reread because I just vibed with it a lot, which is by an author called Ian Banks, who wrote The Wasp Factory. Yeah. And again, I haven't read poetry in a few years. I couldn't like think of any to come to mind, but I went through my poetry folders and I have one called J an Apology. Great. Which is beautiful. I don't know, do you want me to read this?
Hear it. Oh, let's hear it.
Fuck, okay. J an Apology by Ian Banks. Lady, I have tried to love you less, and in so trying I am also tried as loving. I find you, so too I find myself guilty of loving you. I have made the attempt of brushing such concern aside, but failed. The love I have of you will not be so removed. For though I had thought it just impression, a possibly painted thing, thin scrape and scene which I could with ease erase by only demanding the effort from myself, I find instead it is a virtual image, a reflection of a truth outside, word and substance perfect. Your text, your reality and shape mirrored, no mere texture. And trying to rub away that being, to remove the object of this fascination, I do not smear or smudge or even darken slightly, but rather wipe from that smooth glass the remnants of what dust may there adhere, and with my hand soak up what condensed breath my existence placed between me and my love. So see you clearer and more lovely than before. So, self-confounded, What can I do to love you less but try to love you more?
That was beautiful. I mean, what's really interesting is how the construction of that, you're with him and in his anxiousness. It's really interesting that was the one you picked. But then obviously the poem that you delivered from my back catalogue as well, there's high anxiety.
Yeah, there's something there. I need to call my therapist.
Stephen, it's been an absolute pleasure to hang out with you today. Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday with a brand new episode of Belly Button Fluff on My Pillow, featuring another brand new characterful poem performed by another special guest, and of course a whole other bucket load of amateur reflections on poetry and mental health. We release a fact sheet each week alongside the podcast that points our listeners to the glorious corners of the internet that we unearth during the episode. To download this for free, head over to Drew's website www.drewmakestheatre.com. Cheers.